I prepare for that. I forgot to prepare like how to open. Anyway, it's okay. Just it's very chill session.
All right, so very good morning. Morning, everyone. I'm nice to meet you all. Maybe a little bit background on myself. It's very long. So, I'm from, so you can get something back from my so I'm from Sunday University. I'm a senior lecturer. I was a lecturer in University for some time ago. I think about 2 years and a half ago. I was here. I remember having a few lectures in this hall and stuff, which is for your PSI 105. I remember I had a student which is Champagne sitting there. So I think some of you might still have the notes. I think she shared the notes in that time. So she was sitting there. So anyway, just a little showing off that like how expensive I'm here in university. For those that have, I believe you have already received the slides already from my emails. But in case you have that, you can go to this link here and download the material to follow me. Just one highlight from 3D homework on the slide to share the students. That day I just prepare my slides and immediately share the assignment. Anyway, thank you very much for the because I forgot. Yeah, I really like share with the time to disseminate the material slide everything to all of you. And I forgot one thing which is some of the materials written there are highly copyrighted. So if you really have the slide, you will open the slide, check the slide. I'm sure you've already seen a few copy ones. Just highlight that if you want to take photos, anything, share on social media, Instagram, be careful now. You choose slides without copyright because whatever is copyrighted, anything the document or the video they found some Asian Chinese lecturer share Pokemon images or bookshop slides. Everybody will talk about these are don't share. You want to share the slides without Pokemon, okay? I hope we make it a great anyway. I'm just trying to do this thing anyway. So feel free to go to the link and download accordingly and you may share with others. When you share with others, it's just any problem. Thank you. This is one on the menu today. There's a problem with that I cannot see my screen, so I also was here. So the thing we begin with what is exploratory analysis, factor analysis. We'll talk about set of EFA. We'll do a little practice with JS, and then we'll talk about moving on and what should it be with the new notation that is implemented. Just before I start, I want to also double check with you a few things, just a short anyone from here from year one. No year one to come to the EFA. Year three. Okay, so yes, people who are suffering from just PCs now, right? So, completely understand. So, FIT might be some add-on for you to, enrich your discussion practice. We'll discuss about that later on. So, anyway, we will begin with some definitions. What is EFA? I'll give you very practical thing already. So, first question before that, I want to know your understanding about what is EFA. So, if you don't mind, can the QR code here? You will try to find the screen is just in this slide.com. So you can scan the QR code or you can go to slide.com and then put for Pikachu or in lowercase. Again, something like that. So and what is understanding about EFA in your opinion, in your own words, without Googling, without ChatGPT, without Gemini, what is EFA? It's not graded, so don't worry if you give a wrong answer. If you give a very good answer, don't worry. So since you should join for this EFA help, in other words, you should at least know that what is, you have an idea about it. So if you ever advise you to workshop or department speak, for example, probably you should not join. Anyway, so all right. So let's see what is your understanding here. So please allow me to get off screen for a while. To find out how many factors there are in the measures. Okay, so EFA is a method that will tell us how many factors we have in the measure. Sometimes we do when we want to find factors of a psychometric measure. So when you say a psychometric measure, so does it mean that when the measure is not psychometrically tested, then we cannot use EFA? Careful with the placing. To explore how many factors will be in the measure and is it correlated or not. Okay. To statistically test the generated items for a psychometric measures. Okay. So yeah, you're right. So obviously from the term EFA, exploratory factor analysis, quite obviously one of the objectives to identify factors. Because we analyze for factors, right? So that's why I'm easy to assume that I predict that you will have mentioned a lot about factors in your answer in first question there. That's why it leads to my second question. What is the factor? Just to mention that EFA will help us identify factors, the manager, the purpose for factors, the test of factors. So what is a factor? It is factorizations that you learn in secondary school and addition mathematics where you can do bracket x bar 1, x minus 1 equal to 0. Factorizations. So is it factor? Factory. I'm too fast. Of course. A variable, something that can influence variables. It sounds more like a predictor, isn't it? Something that can influence a variable, isn't it an independent variable? So does it mean that a factor cannot be a dependent variable? Variables that include in study control variable, IV, DV, covariate, etc. Okay. In a bunch of items, probably not all of them are correlated with each other, and some potentially independent factor could pop up. So I will give you a few analogies here. Or what we do in factor, right? So which I accidentally linked to the slide at the end. You already have the slide. So from the slide here, what is Pokemon? You see a draw of Pokemon, right? So that is a factor. Pokemon is a factor. Okay? A factor that can explain all. Now, let's change to a more difficult, complex situations. What is the from here? Pokemon. Fire types, electric types. Okay. So obviously we have, Charizard here. It looks like Charizard is a black Charizard. A black Charizard. Charizard with bigger wings. 5 types. Pikachu, orange Pikachu, mixed color Pikachu, flying Pikachu, weird Pikachu, electric. So from here, without knowing about Pokemon, we can easily classify as what it did just now. So there are a group of things that look like Pikachu. There are a group of things that it is. A group of Pokemon that looks like it. So in this case, we factorize. So that is a fact. Whereby instead of reading it as not whatever it is, Pikachu, orange Pikachu, weird Pikachu, flying Pikachu, green color Pikachu, difficult for us to say. There's a group of Pikachus like it. There's a group of something similar to Charizard that is to be defined. So that is factor analysis. And congratulations. Without using the answer, you already perform for your EFA. Exploratory factor analysis. So that's the end of the workshop. I hope this will give you a gist about what is EFA in general. So let's see more scientifically in psychology. When are we going to use EFA? Why are we using EFA? So by the definitions. In science, you need to measure things that we cannot measure directly in most of the time, right? So I think in psychology, year 2, year 3 students, you have exposed a couple of different variables: stress, depression, anxiety, dramatic disorder, procrastination, farming, behavior. Yeah, exposed so many different variables, right? Now, think of it. Many of those variables are things that we can't really see, we can't really touch. So that is the part that makes psychology very interesting as a discipline as compared to other sciences. For example, physics, you will deal with volume, you deal with height, you deal with speed, momentum, everything. These are things that you can measure, that you can see and touch for many of them. Psychology. How do we know about the psychological constructs? How do we know about, for example, intelligence? How do we know that someone is smart? So for me, I realized that smart, intelligence, a lot of psychological constructs here, they are very, big, and you think that we can't see, we can't touch, we can't measure them directly. So that's what we call as a latent effect. Okay. So how do we measure things that we cannot see and cannot touch? So are you saying that we can use the ghost detector? This case, to tell us something that we can't see and touch, but psychologically. So we use a lot of questions. Our question is really measuring something that you want. So that is one of the advances. So basically, how do we use EMA in psychology? For one very typical example is by personally, we use factor analysis to identify factors in personality. Now, personality, I believe, we share this from personality psychology, is a very broad umbrella, right? So no one will ever come to you and say, hey, I have a high personality. Low personality. Doesn't make sense. There are many components, there are many factors under the personality itself. So that is factor analysis, right? So how factor analysis work in personality? So initially, I mentioned about this. Of course, study the dictionary and identify a few thousands of words, verbs, and subjects that can describe personality of something. For example, hardworking, tired, lazy, all these descriptive that can describe a personality of someone. So he extracted like a few thousands of these words and he tried to put them into 200 potential personalities that work like a parent personality. They can guide for the other few thousand personalities. 200 variables. Is it too much for us to handle the research? Or even in practice, imagine when you graduate to become a counselor, this is the first day you meet with your client. You need to check for 200 personality of your clients. How many days you spend with the clients just for introductory. So people need to reduce that. So that's why someone mentioned to verify further continue the research, whereby he studied or he became for about 100-something thousand periods, and that's applied exploratory factor analysis, which now minimize it to 16 personality factors, which is known as 16 factors. So that is the root of secondary data, which are really coming from factors. So having 16 personality now, it makes things a lot easier for us to interpret, make things a lot easier for us to manage general life as a psychologist, as a psychiatrist, as a clinical psychologist, as a counselors, researchers, academics, students, learners, anyone. 16 personality is a lot more manageable as compared to a few thousand words of personality. Whereby now we know that, for example, extroverts, people who are extroverts, they are more likely to be socializing, they are more likely to be active. You already can associate a lot of personality words with this one factor. That is analysis. Okay, get the idea of personality? I mean, the factor analysis now. So latent variable is something that we can't see. And then under them, we have the measured variables. So extroverts, for example. Can we see someone, look at this, your face, extrovert. Your face, 64% introvert. But we know that extrovert show. We know the traits that introvert show. We know the traits that people with high neuroticism show. So that is what psychoanalysis is. It will create a factor that can describe the list of stuff. Not the other way. It is not because of the list of stuff you get a factor. It's the factor itself that drives the list. That is the idea of psychoanalysis. A little bit, I will talk, that's why we just go into more technical things. So main function of analysis, one is to understand the structure of a set of variables. So this is it. In your lab reports, in your, ESR 105, 107 to 102, 345, probably you should have mentioned things like our limitation is we assume that the variable is unidimensional, but therefore the fact that there is multi-dimensional. That is because there is a role of the variable. Is the variable really, is it really a unidimensional? Just one thing, or is it multi-dimensional? That we can have many factors that describe for one. So that is second, to construct a questionnaire to measure and underlying variables. So that is what I mentioned just now in the slide. We use factor analysis to build a factorial validity of something. So you created, let's say, 20 items about a specific variables, describing something like X something. So, and then you perform for a factor analysis, you found that there are 3 factors underneath these variables. So in this case, there are 3 factors that you should use the 3 factors separately instead of using the overall answer. So that is the second objective of factor analysis. To reduce data to a more manageable size while retaining as much of the information as possible. So this is what we have seen from that. So from the 200 something item, we reduce to 16 factors. That is a lot more easier for us to manage, to handle, to use it in research, to interpret. So reduce the dimension. So if you use this one, we have a big demographic check. Anyone use FDSS here? Which people use that? So, okay, right, it's if you look at the test, in order to find the functions of EFA technology, it is called dimension reduction. So that is this one. We try to reduce the dimensions to more manageable amounts. Instead of having 20 variables, like 4 variables, that is easier for us. All right, so there are a few techniques for identifying clusters of variables. So basically, if you heard about this, we have the principal component analysis that a confirmatory factor. So today we will focus on exploratory factor analysis. Just to highlight something that actually CTA, principal component analysis, is very similar, but at the same time very different from EFA. One reason is for EFA, as mentioned, we have the latent, right? So that latent variable something we cannot take advantage. They will inform you how you respond to items. But this PCA, basically, they will look at the components of it. They will group things together as a component. That is not that. But EFA will create a latent variable that is a variable of difference between that is significant for you from here. So there is one very distinguished feature from the 2 methods here. I don't confuse you. I just want to highlight if you go to some textbook, they look pretty much the same. But if you are using it for very basic research, like for example, you after your thesis, you want to do some additional analysis, for example, it's fine for you to use either one. They should not have overly different findings. But if you are more like a statistical case and you really want to dig into what does this statistic mean, then the two will be very different. But for general purposes, for general use, it's the same. Like, for example, you can use your Android smartphone, you can use iPhone. You can, both of them can give you Instagram, can give you WhatsApp, can call, can receive messages, both of it can. But if you are really into the device itself, then you realize that actually they are fundamentally different. Okay? So there is a difference between the two, but in more modern studies, I would say there are more people who use CFA than HIS. Right. EFA and CFA, what is the difference? Of course, like EFA is exploratory. CFA is for confirmatory. So I say that's yeah. Actually, we can look at that. When we use CFA, like we mentioned just now, when you have a lot of items, you want to look at the factors, you don't know about what the factors. So that's why you want to explore. You use the statistics to inform you how many factors do you have. Oh, these 200 items. You use the EFA, that will give you 16 factors. Do you think, well, before performing some data study, he already had I will pick something for 16 and I want to have 16 factors. No, he explored. He wanted to know how many factors for personality. So that is why exploratory. Confirmatory analysis is more like you just want to confirm. Someone tells you that, okay, someone developed a skill of 16 PM, the measure of 16 PM. Now, you want to confirmatory analysis, EFA, to confirm that did really 16 factors that you have here. If you take it out, is it really? So that is the general idea about EFA. EFA is you have a set of data. You are not sure how many factors that you have. You just run analysis, you get the data. How many factors you have. EFA is you should already know how many factors that you should. And you just check whether it is correct. You want to confirm is it true or not. Right. PCA and CFA can be both conducted performed in that generally JSE. CFA, it cannot be performed in SSS. I'm sorry to say those things, but yeah, SSS do not have this function. GSE, it seems to have this function that I'm trying. Much of I think you really want to try make sure that CFA should always be surely delivered. In other words, you should have a reason. Like if you don't know anything about the factors, how do you confirm it? So you should already know before you conduct a study, these are the things that you test whether is it true or not. Okay, so that's why for your thesis, I will probably encourage more on this one. For CFA, you can take it to the master or PhD studies if you want to contribute to policies. All right, so I think that will basically summarize the difference between the three common methods and why we are focusing more on the EFA itself. And now it's finally time for us to move on to stats for EFA. So how exactly should we perform for EFA? Not just in the essay, what I am, more theoretical, conceptual, how do you do it? So I want to have a bit of real warning that EFA is a lot more as compared to some other MSc that have so far. For example, certain correlation. But when you perform for physical correlation, basically you just pump in the data into JSP, click on what MSc you want to run. You get the R, you get the F, you go with the P-values. That's it, right? There's not many decisions that you need to make. You just follow it step by step. Then you get that. ANOVA is a little bit different now. ANOVA, whereby it's a two-step analysis, whereby you first scan for the overall different X statistic member to have is there any difference between the three levels? If it is significant, X is significant, you perform a post-hoc analysis to compare where it two-step analysis, right? So it makes it a bit more complex, but EFA has a lot more steps. So it is quite a few steps to perform this analysis, and even worse is you have the freedom to choose how do you want to customize Pearson correlation, ANOVA, multiple regression, all these, there's a fixed way of doing it. You just follow it step by step, step by step. You get the analysis, you get the results, you interpret accordingly. Everyone gets exactly the same findings. EF is different, whereby there are features that you should decide. How do you want to advance? Do you want to use method A? Do you want to use method B? And statistically, method A and B will give you different results. So that is where you, as a researcher, come, whereby you should make an informed decisions. How do you want to run it? So that's why EFA is actually one of the best training grounds for us to learn about tactics of figure academic. Whereby this is the first time that you give the full flexibility on how exactly you want to run it. Okay. So basically, there are 4 steps in EFA. It can always begin with an boring function test, factor extraction, convolution, reliability. So let us begin with the first one, the function test. So for EFA, basically, of course, if you want to do some extra like you want to put a test for students, statistics, biology, it's not wrong. You can test for students, statistics, but the function that more specific to EFA 2, the first one is sample. So sample size is a little bit debatable, whereby if you refer to different specific time group, many of them will give you different numbers. Some will say, you should have 300 participants. Yeah. Some of them will say, actually, you just multiply the number of items by 10. Some will say, you multiply the number of items by 8 plus 20. There is a different formula for you. So I don't confuse you. General rule of thumb, there are more people who agree on this, whereby generally speaking, 2 methods. One, sample size is hard. As long as the sample size is bigger than 300, fine, go with it. Of course, if you have 300, imagine that you have 300 participants here. You have 500 items here. That makes sense, right? So, of course, the number of things should not be too much. If you really have a lot of items, 500 items here, then maybe 1,000 participants like this. But assuming for your kids, usually you have like 20 items per variable, 300 is more. But I understand is part of the legacy list by our load machines certificate and for FIP, for PCs, for some of the reports, you do calculate for G power, right? I'm so sorry about this. I'll be positive. Anyway, sorry, again, G power. Why G power? Because G power basically we test for the power to reject the number of the system. And the bad thing with G power is it always depends with a small number, about 100. We understand that for students, if I want, imagine like the kilobyte, so you want collect 1,000. You share on the Instagram, you look at it, something for over 300 times. How to get 1,000? You scratch, you panic. You panic, it's not the next story. That's why we put it 100. So it is 100 participants for FYP, for PCs. Doesn't mean you cannot do EFA. So that's why a rule of 300 is a very in this case, whereby for this is almost impossible. Right? So that's why introducing you. Okay, so it is a statistical test whereby it is testing on the explorability can be formed for meaningful factors based on your items. Now, when is it impossible for a factor? I think it's easier for me to explain when is it impossible for a factor. when KMO is equal to 0, it means that, let's say, if you have 20 items, the EFA will return to you, you have 20 factors. 20 items leads to 20 factors. There's no factor at all, right? So that is KMO of 0. There's no factorability. You cannot create any meaningful factors. When KMO equal to 1, it means that you have 20 items, you could create for a few meaningful factors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, depending on the scale. I would say that one of the best in this case because we don't want everything to be unidimensional. Personally, for example, it should not be unidimensional. It should be multidimensional, right? So it really depends. So KMO basically telling you, is it possible for us to have a factor put the things together? Okay, so in this case, of course, we can expect the KMO to be exactly as 1. Basically, rule of thumb, as long as it's bigger or equal to 0.5, then it is okay as well. Okay, ideally, you have some KMO like 8.9, that's 11. Now, second assumption is correlation between variables. Situation for the items to be correlated, right? So in this case, what we use is parallel lines, whereby now logically, when you have factors, you have let's say I'm a questionnaire, you have 5 items of depression. People who score high in 1, in most cases, you score high in item 2 as well, right? Score high in item 3 as well, right? So you wouldn't want people who, sometimes they score very high, sometimes they score extremely low, very extremely low. So in this case, so that is basically balance. So one good thing about that is, it will give you a p-value. It is significant. It means yes, there is meaningful correlation between the variables, and hence you can use factor analysis. If it's non-significant, then sorry, you cannot use the factor analysis. So you want a significant p-value for correlation between variables. So that is why every time when you read the psychometric papers, when you go to the EFA sections, they will almost always begin with these 2 information, KMO and balance. They are the assumptions for EFA basically.
How does the KMO actually inform us how many samples?
No, basically it is just, okay. KMO is different from G power. So basically KMO will not inform you like how many participants that you place. G power gives you the distribution and target as 1 will be right? But KMO is still telling you 0 to 1. So because it is after you have collected data, it is impossible for you to recruit for more in this case, right? There will be key factors. So in this case, based on this sample, is it sufficient rate? So if it is closer to 1, sufficient. If it is less than 1, insufficient. Basically. Okay. So again, summarize. KMO, we are targeting at the KMO values of higher than 5. And we want for a pilot test that is significant. Okay, then we move on. Oh, yeah. Okay, good question. She asked me if KMO is less than sufficient. Can we recruit for more participants and continue retest against the KMO? It really depends on how do you design your study, and it depends on your ethical standpoint. So that is one ethical consideration for optional stopping. Which is you continuously to recruit but until you get a significant balance. That is correct. But let's say if you are only for exploratory, for example, this is one question. You don't really have a hypothesis, you don't have a fund, for example, you can basically like for data collection, they say like in future, who knows that you tell a very well-known popular, very popular researchers, you are recruiting, for example, 10,000 participants, for example. when you have 1,000 participants, maybe I should just run a preliminary analysis. So you can't be 1,000 participants. So it really depends on your hypothesis. Why? So that is
because I know when we calculate sample size, people criticize G power and they use a different one. The different one is what they have forgot the name. They started different software to calculate instead of G power.
there are many. There's even a table that will show you if your population is how big, then how many participants you should have. That is form 4 formulas to calculate the sample size as well. So you can, okay, so basically what you can do is you can go to Google and Google Scholar and search for determining sample size. There's one article with this name. It will give you a few formulas to determine sample size. But just be reminded that that is a little bit old school. This is determining sample size by Israel, although it's Israel, not the country of just Israel. So it was published for a long time ago. That's why it's a little old school methods. If you return to you bigger sample size, usually 300, which hits the sample size. So that's why we call it 3 power, right? So yeah, but there are many methods. There are many methods. And there are also studies, articles, methodological papers that argue that you can determine your sample size based on your hypothesized effect size. If you expect for a huge effect size, you need a small sample. Yeah. If you expect for a very small effect size, R equal to 0.01, you need a really big effect, I mean, very big sample size to determine this small effect size. Yeah. So they are indeed many methods. Okay. Right. So that is about the summary. Moving on to step 2, which is factor extraction into space. Very bad. Factor extractions. So extraction is basically telling you how many factors that you want to extract from items. You have 20 items here. How many factors that you want to extract? That is the time that you need. So there are three methods we will define, of course. One is random numbers. I just want to have one unidimensional or EV differentiation. So you set it in one. Oh, this is statistically can round, but ethically, of course. There are many other methods more statistically. For example, principal component analysis already done by the start. We can use principal axis factors. We can use maximum likelihoods methods. There are different methods, different statistical approach that will determine the number of factors that we want to extract. Basically, by far, it is running most of the exploratory factor analysis guide to say that we should use maximum likelihoods, which is ML estimations. Yeah. So ML basically will allow you to calculate for some key differences. It is following the strict assumption, so it is more data. And it should assume for normal distribution of your items. So each of your items should be normally distributed. Okay. So say for example, if you are using a skill that asks about suicidalization, sorry to explain, but let's say if you ask about suicidalization, well, I will assume most people will have no relation. So in this case, you can expect your data to be very skewed. Majority of people have low, right? So in this case, it's not normal, more super. So that is so if possible, go with ML, which is maximum likelihoods. If really cannot, then you go with principal axis factors, CAF. If still cannot, you can go with PSI basically. So this is the first decision. How do you want to extract your factors? how many factors you want to extract, the approach you want to go with. Okay, so summarize. Recommendation is maximum level. Okay, so in order to understand like how did this maximum level work, let us begin with integration and factorial. We will not go into the statistics. We are not going to mathematics calculation. The last much time your degree is for not mathematics science, right? Yeah. So that's why we're not going into the management part of it. You see that? We go with more simple analysis, which is same question. Anyone love ice cream? Okay. Anyone never had ice cream before? No. So actually, all ice cream before, huh? Okay, so we love ice cream. Many of us love ice cream. So on the x-axis here, we have the number of ice cream. On the y-axis is your satisfaction level. So now, when you have your first ice cream, you get your noise. Your satisfaction level is up. Right? What if you have your second ice cream? Noise. Okay. Do you think it will continue to skyrocket? You have a thin ice cream, second thin ice cream. Okay, all right. Actually, you can go up, but in a bit. What about third ice cream? Same ice cream. Even lower. You start upgrading with 4 ice cream, even worse. 6 ice cream, you are not happy anymore. So you reach the plateau, right? So basically, that is your satisfaction is very much more. So in this case, many of you say, ideally, we have like 1, 2 ice cream, not more than 2. So that is, you decide how many ice cream you want to have. Okay. Decide how many ice cream you want to have. Decide how many factors that you want to have. Very similar to that. So basically, what you can do is, for this curve, for this line itself, we put it upside down. We put it upside down. On the x-axis, we have number of factors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On the y-axis, we have a statistic called eigenvalue. Eigenvalue, I know that you don't know what is it. That's why I prepared the definition for you and wait for you. The amount of variance in the data explained by the factor. In other words, when you add for one factors, how satisfied you are statistically. When you add for one factors, how many variance you explain. Now, if you have too many ice cream, the satisfaction you get it. The increment of your satisfaction will get smaller. When you have too many factors, the percentage of exceeding, it will still increase, but it increases in smaller proportions. We are not supposed to have too many factors. We have 20 factors, 20 factors. That's not helpful, right? So in this case, we try to reduce. We try to have a smaller sample. So in this case, what we can see here is when you have only one factor, it is highest. When you have second factor, it will go down significantly, right? Eigenvalue will go down significantly, which is good. When you have third factor, okay, it goes down about. When you have a fourth factor, okay, it is not helping you. That's from eigenvalue. So when you have eigenvalue, when you have this graph, it is called a screen plot. A screen plot is the definition of this screen. Okay. So if you try to draw the lines here, there's a point of inflections around 3 factors here. Right? So one thing to highlight here is, well, it's a little bit different from the ice cream analogy. Just now from ice cream analogy, we are saying that we should have 2 ice cream, right? But the situation is different because we cannot have 0. So what we do is we move 1 unit to the left. You should have 2 factors. So the point is pointing at 3. The point of inflection is at 3 factors. You go left for 1 unit. You should have 2. Remember just now the ice cream example, it begins with 0, right? This graph begins at 1. So that's why you should go left for 1 unit. So based on this free plot, if you know statistics, you will say, yeah, according to my idea, we should have 3 factors based on this free plot. Easy. Okay. So how should we find out how many factors? Of course, one of the ways is you retain all factors eigenvalue bigger than 1 is one very popular method. As mentioned, the eigenvalue is the amount of basically how having one additional factor. When the eigenvalue is less than 1, it means that by having more factors, you are not happy. Become very minimal. By having more entry, you are not satisfied. It becomes very minimal. Since it's eigenvalues. That's why one very conventional way of it is based on eigenvalue. Method 2 is by using split plot. The split plot is the plot that we draw just now. We identify where is the L loop, where is the point of inflection, and we move one point to the left. That is based on split plot. I want to say in most cases, yes, eigenvalue and split plot they will agree with each other. Why? Because split plot is plotted based on eigenvalue. It makes sense that they will add in each other, right? So it is weird if your eigenvalue say one thing, your split plot say another thing, it can support wrongly, or they are special situations. In special situations, nothing but this. Would you blindly follow statistics? Psychology. Is it data driven or theory? Have any of your lecturers come to your lectures? You have to prepare one assignment on this. The assignment should be data driven. Or has there any lecturer that come to you? You should prepare one assignment on this. The assignment should be based on this theory, this concept. Psychology is theory driven. You should not be data driven. We are not data scientists. We are not data analysts. That is for data mining. I know there are some big words that people are using nowadays. But sorry, ideally we go with theory driven. We need to make an informed decision. You should not be a blind researcher that allows the data to tell you everything. In that case, we don't need that. We don't need psychology. So you are the one who make the decision, and hence, instead of just looking at eigenvalue, split plot, you should base on past research. Now, when you test for your manager, when you use the manager, when you use a questionnaire in your survey, I'm sure you are pretty safe on some existing manager, someone who's tested it, right? You should always have a past research to refer to. Now, think about it. If you have the data, you perform your gathering, you found that your EMP eigenvalue is that they are 3 factors. But when you look back on the original article, they say actually there are 2 factors. What do you do? Do you say that original authors, you are wrong? You should have 3 factors. Explore why outside you can. One way is explain. You try to find out, hey, why happens because 2 factors, because 3 factors is sounds very expensive. Or maybe you want to test a competitive model. You limit, remember, you can set any numbers to your expression, right? Limit to 2 factors. And see if it better or is it worse. If you limit it to 2 factors, you found that the 3 factors still better than the 2 factors. You argue, why is it better? Statistically better? Theoretically, why? However, let's say 3 factors is better than 2 factors, but you don't have any theoretical ground to say it. It's like, my difference is better 3 factors. My difference. I am so confident with that. Have you ever heard one thing called sampling bias? Sampling error. Every time you collect the data, you get a different findings. Yeah. Supported with theory. All right. So you should consider a lot of factor interpretation. Instead of having just the numbers that tell you as a researcher, you as a psychologist, why is it like that? Why is it like that? Why do we get the same findings? Why do we not get the same findings? You should interpret. Always remember, I want to register this in your brain now. We are not data driven. We are theory driven for psychologists. If you are data driven, go to the admission office and register for mathematics. Data analysis, that's the key. Psychologists always theory driven. We will not let the data tell us what to do. We use data as a tool to interpret the data accordingly. So this is the most sticky part as compared to Pearson correlation, because when you perform for Pearson correlation, IRR is 0.4, additive R is 5, you get a bigger findings, then it works. You find it. You just go that. Just nothing you can do. Yeah, I think 0.5, but I took 0.4. Done. What you think? Nothing. EFA. Remember, you can let the data to tell you how many factors. You can understand how many factors. So that is a lot of decisions that you need to make. So that makes a very huge difference between EFA and many others that you have learned so far in 105, 1, 2, 3, 5. Okay. And how? So we got one question that asked that does it make sense for us to use if there are different findings, we found real finding origin funny. Now you use the CFA to confirm, right? Which one is better, for example? Yes, it can. One way is, at the very first place, since the past origin party already do an PFA, why do you put the export? Why don't you confirm already? That 1%. So this is the very first recommendation. Should I go with PFA? Should I explore more? Should I confirm already? So that is the first one. So if the cost audit is, using a national representative sample, should you put the explore with the three, like 100%? Yeah, having a 10,000 dollars. Like, not meaningful compare. But if the cost audit is used in a sample of 400 adolescents from Finland, you have young adults, 100 young adults in the nation, for example. Explore makes sense. You cannot confirm. Right? And there is another concern why. Yes, if you have a lot of data, means if you have, let's say, in 3.5 million about it, you can think data 20,000 participants. It's hard. Half go with exploratory factor analysis, another half go with CFA. Yes, you have. But your CT are 100 participants. 50.
And I ask, because I know that when we do EMA for that data, we can do CFA. Why is that so hard? Is it because like we explore and we say like that, then we use the same thing, then confirm it's like confirming what we say like.
Okay, so thank you for listening. I'm very good questions. There are many people, if you go to research game, for example, there are people who say that you have EMA, you cannot do CFA. You should use different sample. It's a bit of on the practice. To be honest, if you ask me, I'm at the middle. I cannot decide which one is correct. You decide. Okay? You decide what you think. Now, let's go with yours. No, we are not supposed to use EFA and CFA in the same sample. Let's imagine this. If you go to the bank, you buy a cake, you take a bite, explore, noise. Let's confirm another bite, noise. the next thing take you should try to replicate. What's the point of using it? Nice. Don't compare it. That's one point. So that's why you should like test this go for another or you go to a different bakery, buy the same cake or like for or like that. So ELA should not use the same data set. Okay. ELA, why because of the same data set? Now think about this. In your lab report, you run for Pearson correlation and you run for multiple regression. Why can't I? You test the relationship between prediction and the Pearson correlation, multiple regression get the different effect of statistics. EFA get different effect of statistics. Why we cannot use the same thing? My first time I fix something, my second time I fix multiple checks. So it's to be honest, even in business scale, there are people calculating which they are. So that's why I don't make decision here. So I just like leave it to you. You decide for your case which school that you want to go with. I prefer that I am not trying to use this. Yeah, there is a different aspect, but when you are ready, let's say, if you go what EFA, you are trying to see how many factors you can get. Based on EFA, it is 4 factors. You run EFA, it is 4 factors. If you look at it, yeah, it's a different analysis. You look at a slightly different aspect of statistics, but the fundamental is still very similar. But mathematically speaking, the two analyses work very differently. So it's like, okay, so as a psychologist, I decided to listen to the point and you decide, okay, for my point. Okay, so that is about how do you decide? So summarize. You can look at your eigenvalue as long as just blindly look at eigenvalue for less one factor, so one factor. Or you either a little more hardworking, you draw for a script or look at the point of inflection, elbow here, 1 point for 2 factors. If you are doing more hardworking, refer to the original study, refer to other scientific papers. What do they found? Do they found 2 factors? Do they found 3 factors? You compare and decide to how many factors. And last but not least, you as the highest level of moral integrity, you as the smartest people in the world, and you decide I think it should do that. Okay? And so a lot of decisions. What goes? You have more decisions. One example. Do you need a break? No? Okay, continue. Continue lah, you can always refer according to the okay, continue. And next one is factor rotations. Factor rotation will tell you about the factor structure used when you want to maximize the factors. Like factor rotation, you have 2 methods of factor rotation: orthogonal and oblique methods. So if you have a very mathematical words, like that. So basically under orthogonal we have like very max oblique, we have like from max on oblique, the relation of 2 direct oblique means is 3. So we can say for orthogonal suggests that the 2, that's the function that we have 2 factors. The 2 factors, they are not correlated. Oblique methods suggest that they should be correlated. Now, think about this. If you are looking at deflections, okay, components, factors of deflection include feelings and physiological changes, pride, energy, when you feel long stroke, no sadness. You are more likely to have increased heart rate.
Yeah.
When you have increased heart rate, you cannot sleep. You cannot sleep, you start falling. They are associated, right?
Yeah.
So in this case, the four factors of depression here should be correlated and hence you use oblique rotations. What if they are not correlated? For example, actually it's difficult to find this psychological construct that are not correlated. After checking understanding about this, there's one very important major life events. Let's say you develop a skill about major life. Have you experienced these events in the past month? Okay. Will people who experience bad events also having a high level of peer rejections, parent divorce, parent rejection? Not correlated, so they should be all separated incidences. They are not correlated, orthogonal. So that is how you make decisions. By factor rotations, you decide based on your theory, your understanding about should the factors be correlated or should not be correlated. If they are not correlated, you go with value X. If they are correlated, start to go with direct opinions or formats. If I have something formats. So this is the format I will use. Okay, so rotation is fine. Will the factors be correlated or not? So this slide will show you more clearly about what does it mean by rotation. Now, if you have plotted here on the traditional axis, where x-axis, where y-axis, where some responders here. So in this case, you can easily assume, well, we are additional together with one. We have a red category, we have blue category, right? To make it a leading factor, we will use orthogonal rotation. We rotate the axis to the left by 21 degrees. It makes even better in this case. So you can see that this cross here is no longer so we rotate it to the left a little bit. So which allows for better. To make it even better, we can use oblique rotation. You can imagine it like a feather. You can accept of the two straight lines. So now the angle here is smaller than 90 degrees. This part is bigger than 90 degrees. So it's like a feather, you can see feather posting. So you get a and then you can okay. So that is another. It means that the axis can rotate at different angles. Okay. So that is what we meant by rotation. No rotation. It is the traditional y-axis x-axis. On orthogonal rotation, both the whole thing will rotate in one direction. Oblique rotation, they are allowed, if they are correlated, they are allowed to rotate at different directions. First, we have negative rotation. They can rotate in different directions. So that is oblique. So that is how it is the main rotation. Because we literally rotate the axis. We just move the axis a little bit. Okay. Again. Orthogonal rotation for factors that are not correlated. Oblique rotation for factors that are correlated. Okay. Wonderful.
So for the oblique one, it can be both keeping same direction but different amount of degree for different.
So in other words, Okay, that's just again, just highlight again. On the entrepreneurial location, it is always 1990 1992. It will always be infinity for this is cut from. Okay. Okay, let's move on to the last step. Finally, reliability. Reliability. We usually use compact alpha, right? Compact alpha capabilities, internal consistency. So basically, we are looking at when the items are correlated with each other. So that's what compact alpha. So basically, think about some things we already use factor analysis to identify for two factors. Then it makes sense for us to test the compact look at the reliability of the set of factors, right? So that is why it is always recommended. Yes, reliability is another dimension of psychometric testing. Factor analysis is hard under validity, which is factorial validity. Reliability is different from validity, but as the package towards the end of factor analysis, we will make tests for reliability as well. Well, you can continue with your compact alpha, but today I just want to introduce you to another one that our challenge will have from. Like McDonald Omega, McDonald. Yeah. The logic here is compact alpha suggests that the items are correlated, right? McDonald Omega suggests that they are associated with a latent factor. That is the fundamental of factor analysis, isn't it? So that is why McDonald Omega actually is slightly better in this case than McDonald, than compact alpha. Okay. I will recommend you if possible, calculate the McDonald Omega. We will look at it very quickly, very soon. It is only one click. Recommending you consider for McDonald Omega. And the next slide actually is just a summary slide. We have 4 steps in exploratory factor analysis. First, we begin with assumption check. Assumption check, we look at balance test and KO. Balance test, we want it to be significant. KO, we want it to be bigger than 0.5. And then we go with factor extractions, whereby we look at eigenvalues, 3 cross. You need to decide how you want to extract which Pikachu here recommended, which is maximum likelihood of it. Then we move on to factor rotation. We have oblique and orthogonal rotation, whereby orthogonal rotation, we expect that the factors are not correlated. Oblique, we should be out of it. And last but not least, actually that is the aim of, if you look at it here, that is the aim of your factor. This is post analysis, some additional supplementary analysis. You look at it like this. I will give you 30 seconds to digest while I drink my water. All right, time flies. That is already 30 seconds. So next step is we will move on to practice. Pause. Practice makes perfect. No, practice makes progress. It makes you better. You will never be perfect. Okay. My daughter is perfect, but the other not. All right. So please allow me, give me a little bit time to adjust the sharing and everything. Share. I think I'll just share my screen. Can you, from your screen, do you see the JSP? Yeah. Can I? All right. So please allow me to have my mic stand here, so that I can free up my both arms. So first thing, I believe you already have quick check. Do all of you have JSP? Okay, turn on your JSP. When you have your JSP, do you know how to load your data? You know, right? So you go to the three dot here, the three bars here, you click on it, you click open, and then you go to your computer and you search for your file. You can browse and search for your file. Mine, I have the recent file. Why? Because I practice. Okay, so I will want you to load the BEMAS data.slxx. Yeah, it's the BEMAS data. And then it will lead you to this view of the data. So quick questions. When you get a new set of data, what is the first thing that you need to do? Sorry? Data cleaning, perfect. Yes, you need to clean the data. Don't immediately like, oh, we are at data EFA workshop, we go and factor and click EFA now. No. Clean data first. But you are lucky. This is my data. There's no missing data. I clean for you accidentally. Initially, I want to give you the dirty data, not the clean one, but I cannot find the data. So I give you the clean data. But clean data. Before you can clean the data, actually, there's one very important thing that you should do. That is called data familiarizations. You explore with your data first. I'm sure in your PSI 345 data ethics in psychology, you will learn about this, whereby before you use any data, you should learn about your data first, know your data, what is in the data, then only you start analyze. Do not begin your data analysis with analysis itself. We have a stage called data wrangling. You wrangle with your data first. Right, so in this data set, we can see there's first variable is country. We have sex, not gender, indicating it's a biological sex. Age, university, BMAS 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have 10 BMAS, which we will easily assume that BMAS is coming from the same questionnaire. We have how many participants? Scroll down to the bottom, you see 500 participants. Okay. If you are hardworking, you can click on descriptive and you click on descriptive statistic. You call for descriptive statistics, you move all of the BMAS items to the variable list here. It shows you, okay, so valid, all 500 valids, 0 missing data, lucky you, someone worked for you. So, okay lah, when you use Google survey nowadays, there's no missing value lah, okay? No missing value. But AA, why there's no mean and standard deviation, huh? They do not click? Really? I click mean, standard deviation. That's fine. Skewness, courtesy, shuffle, weak test, no, not shuffle weeks. All didn't come out. Data not good. Correct. We did not change the scale, change the item to scale. So if you go back to your data view, all the items here, they are ordinal. Change the scale. Change the scale. So take them one by one to make them into a scale. I'm trying to do it as low as I can so that you can outperform me. You can do it, finish it before I finish. And then by the time I finish, I can continue talking without waiting. And I'm still buying a lot of time for you. If you can see, I hope you already finished moving, clicking all of them into scale. And trust me, I have the special ability whereby I can talk to myself without stopping for 2 hours because I'm a lecturer. I literally tried. I was so boring. I talked to myself for 2 hours on all different things. I talk about game, I talk about statistics. Okay, let's stop it.
I believe you already finished clicking. I hope I buy enough time for you. Do I need to take another seat of what? No, okay. So from here we can see that we have the mean score, standard deviation, skewness, kurtosis are all here, right? So mean 3.852, 2.652, 4.344. No, I will not read all numbers, don't worry. The mean looks fine. Standard deviation, all of them are 1 point something, looks fine. Skewness, negative point something, positive 1 point something. All of them are less than plus minus 2. Normally distributed. Kurtosis, negative point something, positive point something. Okay, everything less than 0.2 and everything less than plus minus 2, normally distributed. So skewness and kurtosis support that, yeah, our data are normally distributed. Good. Minimum score 1, maximum score 6. So it's not 5-point Likert scale, it is 6-point Likert scale, 1 to 6. So that's why we need to always familiarize yourself with your data first. You know what is your data. What is, sorry? DMS is the name of the measure. Basically, it stands for benign and malicious ND scale. Yeah, just to show off with you a little bit of self-promotion, I shared you one article here, published by me as a first author. This article was published by when 2020. Where were you that time? Okay lah, no, okay lah. So this data, this article was published based on this scale and the analysis here. So we have methods, study 1, study 2. So the data that I gave you is study 1. It is real data that has been published. Okay, so it's not fake data. I don't use ChatGPT to create data. It's real data. If ever go to Shopee and I found this data, I will sue you. So if you look at it here, I reported exactly the same thing: mean score, standard deviation, skewness, kurtosis, which are exactly the same values as we found just now. Okay. I want to highlight. Don't ask me why. When we run for factor analysis, EFA, the findings is a little bit different. Oh, I don't know why. Maybe formula been updated or 2020 COVID changed things. Okay, I don't know. No, I did not check. I have the KMO here under factor validity. I already specified to you, I use maximum likelihood with full max rotations. So this is what we meant by transparency. This is typically important for EFA, as we have discussed just for the past hour, right? EFA is highly flexible and you can have a lot of decisions, flexibility. So it is important for you to report how exactly you design your EFA. Okay. So now let's go with factor analysis. We will click on this factor here. So if you go to your top right corner, you should not have this reliability unless you install it before. You should have this factor at the top right. Should I use the same again? So, okay. Anyway, under this factor here, we have principal component analysis, EFA and CFA. We have all of them. And which one should we click? EFA. We click EFA. So with the EFA, the next thing that we need to do is we highlight all of the BMAS item 1 to 10, move them to the variables. Okay. And at this point, you might have noticed that JSP give me the result already. Like, copy paste to my Word file, wrong. You fail. Why? Because they did none of the customizations. Everything is by default now. Is it suitable for your data? Is it suitable for your study? You don't know. So in this case, you should customize your EFA. So that is why it's different from Pearson correlation, regression, and ANOVA. You put everything there, you will see the result here, highlight, copy, paste, right? EFA, no, sorry. You see some values, they are not right. If you look at Pearson correlation, ANOVA, you see some values, they are always correct. Okay, so be careful with that. Huh? So we scroll down, depending on your versions of your JSP. I downloaded it last week without installing. Yeah, I hacked. Anyway, I have the number of factors here. Do we have the same thing? Some of you might have slightly different layouts. Because I go to YouTube, I saw some of the older version, they have slightly different layout lah. But all of them will have this thing based on what? Okay, so based on parallel analysis, or we will base on eigenvalue. That is what we discussed just now, right? So number of factors is factor extractions. How many factors that you want to extract from your data? So we base on eigenvalue. We can use a very conventional one, maintain it here, or we can change to 0 if you want to look at all possible eigenvalue. By all means, you can do so. Or you already want to decide on, yeah, I want only 2 factors. Benign and malicious NV scale. How many subscale do you think you have? 2 subscale. The name already tells you. So we have 2 factors here, depending on you. So for a more formal recording, we go to the full course of EFA now. We decide based on eigenvalue. Okay, we set eigenvalue as above 1. I will go to the second one, analysis options. Now we can do a lot more customizations. We can choose our rotation methods. Would you want a orthogonal or oblique? Now think about this. Benign NV. Just now, all of them, they are, oh no, yeah, benign NV, malicious NV. In your opinion, benign NV is basically you envy of someone, you want to be like someone, you level up yourself. Malicious envy is you envy of someone, you downgrade the person. Do you think benign envy, malicious envy, they are correlated? As 1 out of 7 sins, not 2 of the 8 sins. So by right, well, it's both envious feeling, right? You envy of someone correlated. So in this case, it is oblique. So you can choose, you want to use Promax, or you want to use oblimin, which is direct oblimin. We go with the Pikachu Fula, we go with oblimin, okay? The Pikachu just now say oblimin.
Then we see correlation. So do we necessarily have to subjective interpretation of the correlation, either we can be based on like actual correlation of stats?
Okay, good point. So when deciding on our rotation methods, should we base on theoretical, correlation, or should we really examine the correlation with Pearson correlations? Both together, basically. Yeah. So I will show you in the next few clicks that actually, yes, you can call for correlations between the variables. But of course, let's say the Pearson correlation here show that, yeah, it's correlated, but based on your understanding, it should not be correlated. Then you go with orthogonal. So I will say your decisions is always should be based on your theoretical reasonings as a researcher. So you should not go with data-driven analysis, basically. Okay. All right, so we click on oblimin here. we use oblique mean, is it click or not click? Click, okay. Factoring methods. Don't ask me why. I don't know why by default is minimum residuals. I really don't know. I tried to Google and I don't find the answer. In your opinion, are the items normally distributed? Yes, no. If yes, why? Yeah, we have the skewness and kurtosis. Skewness and kurtosis are both within the plus minus 2. So in this case, yeah, they are normally distributed, and hence we go with the Pikachu recommendations, maximum likelihoods. So we set maximum likelihoods. So you can use what's it called again? Shapiro-Wilk test if you want to. Yeah, by all means you can. But there will be a lot of p-values, so be careful. The more p-values you have, the higher chance for you to have type 1 error. When you perform a test many times, there is always a chance for you to have a false positive. So that's why we need to be a bit more careful, right? So base the compositions on, do you want to look at correlation or covariance? By default, we always go with correlation. Covariance is a little bit complex to explain, but I will try my best. Variance is how much one variable will differ, right? That is variance. Covariance is how much two variables will deviate together. Make sense? So that is covariance. In this case, when we are conducting for factor analysis, we can blindlessly go with correlations. Okay, we can blindlessly go with correlation. Covariance based, if I were not wrong, it will mix overfit. It has a higher risk for overfitting, whereby you give overly good findings. So we should be more careful. So we go with correlation methods. Output options. So it is a little bit fun here, whereby for your loading above. So if you look at your factor loadings table here on the right-hand side, you can see, okay, so these 5 items load under factor 1, the next 5 items load under factor 2, right? And these are all emptied. Does it mean that their factor loading is 0? Not really, because we use this. We said we will show only factor loading that are bigger than 0.4. To keep it simple, factor loading is almost like, it is not, almost like correlation between the item with the factor itself. So the higher, the better. It is from -1 to +1. The closer the value to 1, the better loading. It fits better to the factor itself. Okay. So if you want to see the full table of this, you don't have to. You can scroll this to the bottom. When it becomes 0, you can see all values here. But when there are too many numbers, it's difficult to read, right? So basically what we can do is we will set it to 0.4 so that the reading is easier for us to read. Note that by changing this, it will not change the value. If you look at the value, I'm changing it to many things, many numbers, all numbers, you will see they will always be exactly the same. Okay. So I will set it to 0.4. You can call for structure metrics, but it will create another. I will show you. You don't have don't click, don't click. I click for you now. You will create for another table that looks very similar to this factor loading. Don't use. The mathematical calculations is slightly different. For more traditional EFA, basically we can use the original one. So factor structure metric is more on I don't know how to make it simple, but look at the strength of the structure. They try to maximize it, basically. No, you don't have to. For a normal basic EFA, you don't need the structure metrics. If you're too free and nothing to do after this workshop, instead of watching your Jujutsu Kaisen, you might want to go to read articles on what is this structure matrix. You can call for factor correlations. So in this case, it will create a table that tells you the relationship between the two factors, factor 1, factor 2. You realize that they are mirrored like normal Pearson correlation metrics. So factor 1, factor 2 correlate with 0.3 is okay. Is okay. Okay-ish. You have the choice to call for fit indices. But if you ask me, I would say don't use. Fit indices is basically telling you how good is the statistical model. For example, a model is good when Ramsey, RMSEA, the first one, is less than 0.06. SRMR is less than 0.06. TLI is higher than 0.9. CFI higher than 0.9. They are different fit indices. Basically, they're telling you how good is the model. And fit indices, there are more people who use fit indices for CFA. For EFA, they just know, no, you don't have to. So basically, when you read journal articles, psychometric papers, when they perform for EFA, usually in most cases, they will not report for fit indices. 10 years ago, there are people who start to report for fit indices. They want to fight for even EFA, we need fit indices. It is still developing. In terms of mathematically, it is still developing. It is not fully matured yet like the CFA. So that is why I will discourage you from reporting the fit indices for EFA, sorry. Parallel analysis. Yeah, if you're too free and nothing to do again, you want to look at parallel analysis. I want to highlight this is because it is another way of us to, decide how many factors that you want to have. So just now we discussed about 4 methods, right? A, eigenvalue, script plots, past studies, interpretations. How do you want to interpret it, right? So there are 4 methods. This is the recent movement for the 5th method, parallel analysis. As you can see from my publication on 2020, both of them are psychometric papers that I share with you, V-Nash and V-Scale, and these student worry scales. Basically, I do not perform parallel analysis. But 2 months ago, when I submit for 1 new psychometric papers, they request for parallel analysis. So it's a little bit of a more trendy stuff that you might want to learn, depending on you. So what is parallel analysis? Now, if you look at this table here, I don't want to confuse you, so I try to keep it as simple as possible. There are 3 columns. First column telling you the factors, real data component eigenvalue. This is your eigenvalues, okay? Eigenvalue based on real data, your data. And then they have simulated data mean eigenvalue. What does it mean? They create random data to calculate for eigenvalues. So they create just random numbers to simulate it. So okay, don't need to put some, it's fine. Okay, so anyway, it is creating for random values basically. In other words, will your factor, meaningful factor, be better than random numbers? So in this case, if you look at factor 1, our eigenvalue is 3.76. Random numbers is 1.23. This one is better. Factor 2, 1.986, higher than 1.151, right? So factor 2 is better. Factor 3, 0.839 now is lower than 1 already. The other side maintained as 1.102. So in other words, random number perform better than 3 factors. In this case, you should have 2 factors. That is the logic of this parallel analysis. How do they simulate the data? That is your homework. You study by yourself. Okay, so just now we also have discussed about scree plots. So we can click on these scree plots. So by default, in JSP, you will have these parallel analysis results together. So note here, parallel analysis is the triangle one. This line, this straight line here. So from here, it visually tells you the parallel analysis perform better than the EFA itself, starting from 3 factors. So this is highlighted here already. So in this case, you should have 2 factors based on parallel analysis. Okay. Alternatively, you can read on your eigenvalues. Eigenvalues is become less than 1 at factor 3, hence you should have 2 factors. Make sense? You can look at your scree plot. If you found this parallel analysis disturbing, you can unclick them. Then you have this. It shows that the elbow, the point of inflection is here, right? At 3. So you can see it's go down, 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 flat. Like go down, 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 flat, right? So this is the point of inflections, and hence we should have 2 factors. So basically, in other words, based on eigenvalue, scree plots, parallel analysis, past studies, your own theoretical reasonings, B must should be 2 factors. All of them agree in this case. Is lucky, to be honest, because there are always cases whereby some of them will disagree with each other. When they disagree with each other, it is your role to decide which one that you want to follow. Okay. So we have KMO and ballots. This by right should be the first step, but JSP decided to park it at the last. Don't ask me why. I don't design. Where is my? Okay, KMO is the first table here. Overall is 0.823. Is the assumption met? Met. Why? It is higher than 0.5. So assumption met, yes. Ballot test, p-values is less than 0.001. What does it mean? Met? Not met? Met. Okay, good. Significant? Met that. So in this case, how are the item loading? We will know that item 6, 5, 8, 10, and 2 will load to factor 1. Item 1, 3, 4, 7, and 9 will load to factor 2, basically. So that is how EFA will work. Yeah, so is by calculation. Yeah, so when you look at this here, factor 3 is 0.8 already. So that's why it's plotted below 1. But so we want to maintain those that are higher than 1. So we'll stop at 2 in this case. Starting from 3 is lower than 1 already. But at this point, since you mentioned this, at this point, think about this. Eigenvalue is 0.839. Is it really different from 1? So you might want to consider having 3 factors. If you want to argue, you can consider basically. But from here, because eigenvalue, scree plot, parallel analysis, original study, the name of the skill, all of them agree that 2 factors. So that's why we can make a very quick decision, 2 factors in this case. But if in your own study, yes, you can actually look at this. Maybe there's a 3 factors. is slightly below 1, let's say your eigenvalue, let's say 0.99, less than 1, but is it really different? The 0.01, does it really matters that much? That's why theory driven. You can use your theory to guide your decisions. Okay. Okay. How to tell the point of inflections? Basically, you are using the last point, and then you try to point one by one. So until you see the most significant change. So in like example, this one, I have this cross here, and then I can make it to cross here, for example. And then the other line, I can make it to cross here. So if you're like, this gap here is a little bit big. So if there's a huge fit, so you can try it like one by one. And okay, now let's move it here. So this gap is smaller than previous one. So we try next one, then yeah, we can just like try one by one until we find that see get bigger already. All right.
The gap they calculate by the surface area.
We don't calculate that basically. Yeah. So that is why there is a criticism about script plot. How accurate can you interpret the area? So very subjective, you're right. So that's why for EFA, use all methods, besides. Okay, so we already perform our factor analysis EFA in this case. You can see the reporting in the article itself. So I have the KMO, bullet test, report the eigenvalues, the factor loading with beautiful tables. Just highlight the factor loadings is a little bit different. You can check this one, okay? And last thing for this analysis is reliability. If you do not have this reliability here, you might want to like add map module and you search for reliability. Click this, then you should have already. I will just do it very quickly. We go with classical unidimensional reliability. So just now, our result shows that our factor loading is, okay, the other one, 13479. We go to one factor, right? So 13479. You move it here. And then you click on analysis. You can call for your compact alpha and McDonald omega. So this symbol like W here is omega. You would have noticed that there's no value for omega here. So what you should do is you click on these advanced options. They already hint you. Omega calculation with CFA failed. Try changing the PFA to PFA in advanced options. So you click on this PFA, then it will calculate already. Okay. So you can choose to report compact alpha. You can report McDonald omega. You can report both together. Okay. Yeah, so this part is rather simple. So basically, yeah, that's about the key discussion that I want to have. Let me share a little bit more, hang in there. So just to make sure that I will share the correct screen. Stop sharing, share window, and this window. Okay. All right, so finally I can send. Right, moving on. Very conscious of the time. We are at 15 minutes, so that's why initially I want to ask you how we want to move on with the EIA. I think I will finish, all right? So
how do you use EFA? When do you use EFA? So sadly to say, according to wrong calculations, for your thesis, you are not allowed to conduct for psychometric testing as your thesis now. You cannot develop a new skill and run organically. I know some of you might be asking, why are we learning this? And fully understand. And hence, I will suggest to you one way that you might consider using this disclaimer. The next slide is shamelessly copy pasted from your PSI 345. By PSI 345, you learn about exploratory data analysis and confirmatory data analysis, EDA and CDA. So just to keep it simple, everything you did so far in your life, they are confirmatory data analysis. You have your hypothesis first, then you want to confirm whether the hypothesis is supported or not. So what you can do is for your thesis later on, consider having EDA exploratory data analysis as complementary to your thesis. What does it mean? Now, example. This is your FYP, your thesis. Let's say in your thesis, you hypothesize envy will correlate with academic honor. If you envy of someone, you are likely to cheat in exam, cheat in assignment, categorize that, right? So higher envy, higher academic honor, right? You collected the data, very happily collected the data, very happy. And you put in your JVS, run analysis. The results show you that it non-critical. Or you be like, I think you're sorry, one month something. Yeah, so that's what you do. What I do, you have to, go right, and you have to find some ways to justify it. That's what we will do, right? So you will say that initially we go for this story, but this already didn't work out. It doesn't fit that because that's the way. So that's what we do in our discussion section. That is when you found a non-significant or contradictory findings. What you can do next is actually you can start to think more about maybe running an EDA for your reference. So instead of looking at NV to academic dishonor, maybe you want to run an EFA because you believe that NV is not unidimensional. NV might be multi-dimensional. You run EFA, you found that we have three types of NV. We have benign NV, we have malicious NV. Benign NV is you envy someone, you want to be like someone, you can develop someone. Yourself, you improve yourself to be like someone. For example, I look at one stuff from usually, I want to like people, I want to do exactly like me. Benign malicious NV. From usually, proposition. Yeah. Okay, I don't know. Really can't do that because the name is maybe should be 11 down. Okay, so my secretary, I feel bad even like have a joke about it. Sorry. Now listen, you try to level down. Okay, so you want to argue that in this case we have two types of ends, and hence they will correlate differently. Maybe if you have malicious envy, you will cheat. You have benign envy, you do not cheat because they will not let others. You get it? So when you find, you can always in your FYP later on, after you test for your hypothesis 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, run for the exploratory data. Should it be EFA or other? so that it can strengthen your argument. Yes, I found a non-significant findings. That's true. But we conduct for a supplementary analysis with EFA. We found that NB should be multi-dimensional. And based on these explorations, we found that they correlate differently. I will not want to confuse you, but in PSI 345, you learned that the tool you use for exploratory data analysis should tone down. It's not about hypothesis testing anymore. You are informing future studies. So in this case, I would recommend future studies should not look at NB as one single variable. You should look at it as multi-dimensional. So instead of like previously finding out even thing as this sort of thing, you use another theorem. And in this case, you are saying that finding out evidence based on our explorations, there's possibility that we should split up. We recommend future studies as when we split up what the strength of it is a lot stronger. Okay, so this is one possible use for EFA that you might want to use in your FYP later on, which I believe will enrich your discussion sections. You are making a recommendation for future studies based on informed evidence. You are not using it, I think, that future studies. Your recommendation for future studies should be very meaningful. So that is the core idea of having confirmatory and exploratory data analysis. I cannot confuse you, so I just leave you. This is focus on we expected. Oh, this is again. So English has been relatively boring. So if you want to have, do you have questions? Or we don't have questions, but we have limited time. So should we even have like this Q&A?
Because so this is only if let's say our found out significant results now. But let's say if we found significant results, do we still want to do? Yeah. That's why when I asked one of the lecturers, then they said it will be counterintuitive because we do EMA. Let's say we say we earlier proposed the theory is 2 factors and the scale minima is 2 factors, but then somehow in our scale we found 3 factors, and then it is significant to predict our result, but then it's counterintuitive because it's not fitting our normal 2 factors and like that out.
So in case there are example different forms of models, again, just always remember that this is supplementary analysis. So your main interpretation should be always based on your main. And this is like in popular studies, for example, you say that popular studies, since we have the supplementary analysis, we found that there might be a chance that there are 3 factors. Next time should look. So the study should consider this. That's how we can. So yeah, you should always go back to theory to justify that why raising the density with 4 dimensions or 3 dimensions. And this one of things that you can highlight in your limitation obviously that in this case there is on debate on how many factors that you should have. Should it be 6 or 4? Yes, original study found it, but is original studies always correct, always accurate? So in this case, there might be one concern. Hence, your limitation is you only follow the original study for 3-factor model. You recommend for future studies to further test or compare 3-factor models with 4-factor models. So we use these kind of exploratory methods to inform future studies what are some possible things that they can do. Okay. the last like
Yes. Studies for studies actually looking like
even for external study, you can. So I assume that when you conduct for your studies, you collect the data and multiple time points, right? I mean, it's very like yes, you have experimental group, you have control groups, but let's say now, experimental group will collect data at two times, morning and afternoon, for example, and maybe the morning, even in the you want to explore, but you can.
so it makes up like it sounds really like story of solving sort of like a bit also it's more
Yeah, exactly. And for your outcome rather as well, you can explore. Yeah. So if not limited to for second study, experiment study, you can apply to because. All right, if there's nothing else, I think that's all from me. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you learned something today.